Welcome to the latest episode of Flip the Cap, the insurance industry's premier podcast where insurance insights flow and trending topics are always on tap. I'm your host, Kathryn Smith, and I'm joined today with my good friend and colleague, Bruce Peddle. Bruce is president of Jencap Insurance Services. Prior to his current leadership role, he founded Risk Innovations in 2002, where he served as president and CEO until Jencap acquired Risk Innovations in 2018. Prior to that, he held various tax and audit roles, along with holding lots of roles with mergers and acquisitions, both in Bermuda and Canada. And as you say, the rest is history. And today is sort of serendipitous how it happened. Bruce and I have worked together very closely for 10 years now. So it just so happened that when I booked him to be our guest today, that it was our 10-year work anniversary. So it's only fitting that we start off Flip the Cap by literally popping the top to get in today. So we have champagne to commemorate our anniversary.
Shall I do the honors?
You should do the honors.
All right, let's do this.
Thanks for putting up with me all these years. Sometimes it was me putting up with you.
The champagne is definitely appropriate. It has required some drinks along the way.
Well, that's just the insurance industry too.
So true.
Woohoo!
All right, success.
Awesome. So, Bruce, I know you've watched the podcast. We like to kick things off by getting to know our guests a little bit better. And I wanted to add an extra challenge for me because I do know you so well. I wanted to make sure that I was learning something about you too. So, you're the lucky one that we're going to start a new Oh, by the way, cheers.
Cheers.
Happy anniversary, darling.
Happy anniversary.
Okay. Now we can dig in. This is a new getting to know you segment. Think of it as a lightning round, this or that. You can't overthink it. You just have to answer super quickly. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Test the waters or dive into the deep end?
Deep end, baby.
Be embarrassed or be afraid?
Be embarrassed.
Plans or surprises?
Surprises.
Smartest person in the world or richest person in the world?
Oh, God, I hate that one. Richest.
Time machine or magic wand?
Oh, time machine.
Words or actions?
Actions.
Clean as you cook or clean up at the end?
Somebody else can clean.
Neither. C. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Dancing or singing?
You don't want to see me do either.
We kind of already did this. Time travel to the past or future?
Yeah, we're going to the past.
Okay. Walk backwards or hop on one foot all day?
I guess we're going to walk backwards.
Classic or modern?
Classic.
Beaches or mountains?
Bring on the sun, bring on the beach.
Hang on to it or donate it?
Get rid of it.
Skydive or bungee jump?
Oh my God, neither. I would die.
Okay. All right. That was just sort of to kick things off, but I do have a couple more questions. And I'm asking you questions that I don't necessarily know the answer to either. What's one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made?
That's honestly really an easy one for me, and it was really investing in myself. And that was a turning point in my career, really, where I was actually fired by the company I was with. And I had opportunities to go into traditional jobs, if you will, or I could start my own business. And ultimately, I talked about it for years, and I decided to invest in myself. Might not have worked well for my 401k for a long time, but it turned out all right.
And are you alluding to starting Risk Innovations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I helped co-found Risk Innovations in 2002. That was definitely an investment in myself.
Who's the most influential person in your life?
Yeah, beyond my parents, if I kind of limit that to my career, one gentleman stands out, and he was really the first person who painted a vision for me of what he wanted to do, how he was going about things, and where he saw his insurance business going. And he ultimately convinced me to move from Bermuda to Atlanta. It took him a year to do that. But David Pennington was probably the first visionary that I really worked under and worked with. And he had a profound impact on my career and my life.
Would you say that was one of the more significant turning points in your life?
Yeah, it absolutely was. Probably not the most significant turning point, but definitely a big one. You move from a Bermuda to an Atlanta and then start a family and ultimately start a business. Definitely a profound impact on my life. And
particularly when you're from Canada. So the U.S. in general is it's not like it was familiar terrain for you to come back to.
No, not at all. I really hadn't lived in any community that was probably more than a couple 100,000 people. And then I moved to Atlanta, which is 5, 6, 7, God knows how many million people today. So it was definitely a culture shock for me.
You mentioned your parents when you were talking about just influential people. I heard someone ask this question the other day, and the answer was so funny to me because I have no idea what the answer would be for me. But how would your parents describe what you do for a living?
Yeah, so funny story there. When we started Risk Innovations back in 2002, my mother and my parents really had no concept of insurance beyond Allstate or State Farm. And my mother's, I think, funniest question to me was, well, if you have your own business, who pays your paycheck? It's like, well, Mom, it's either me, I pay myself, or I don't pay myself. And that was pretty much...
just a total foreign concept.
Total foreign concept, yeah. So that's what I would say about that.
So what, if you could encapsulate your current job duties, how would you describe what you do today professionally?
Yeah, so...
because you have a big job.
I think everybody, if you're doing it right, your plate is full. So it's just different responsibilities. It's twofold. It's leadership, and by that, it's really painting the vision. When you're in a company like a Jencap that has grown so quickly, both via acquisition and organically, it creates a lot of necessity for change. You have to paint the vision. These people have all come from various different smaller entities, and now they're a part of a bigger entity, whether they had a say in it or not. So you have to really be able to paint that vision, help people see where it is you're attempting to go, why it would be a benefit to them, and why this would be a better thing for them personally, and not just for the company and not just for the shareholders. So there's certainly a large component there from that perspective. It's also very organizational in nature. So you're taking and looking at various disparate entities and how do you bring them together to operate as one, to operate better and become one of the best, if not the best, in the industry. And that is kind of the way of the world today, certainly in the insurance industry, in the wholesale space, the retail space. We've seen all kinds of aggregation. So it necessitates change in order to be able to leverage the clout that you've brought together.
Let's end on one thing that people may not know about you. I could answer this so many different ways.
Well, I'll give you a couple. One that about 600 people more knew about after somebody told them at a conference, the Georgia Big I conference. I was stepping up to say whatever at the final dinner, and there's 500 or 600 people in the room, and the president of the Georgia Big I announced that I was coming up, introduced me, and then started to walk away from the podium to allow me to step up to it. And he stopped abruptly, turned around, stepped back to the podium, and he said, "I learned something about Bruce today that none of you probably know." He says, "Bruce has a tattoo. Okay, Bruce, get on up there and talk." And I was like,
Thanks.
Okay, now I kind of feel like I have to explain that. But I have a small tattoo. Something else that people don't know about me, and I use this one quite a bit as icebreakers, is that I was kicked out of the Canadian military. And I leave it at that. You have to figure out why all on your own.
Okay. You also play hockey. You're an avid hockey fan, but you play hockey regularly, or at least used to. Do you still?
I am an avid hockey fan. I played for a long, long time, and I unfortunately haven't played in a couple of years now. So it's an absolute blast.
I can remember many a days that you came in hobbling because you played hockey for hours the night before. And
Yes, between playing hockey until midnight and then turning around and having a beer in the parking lot with the guys afterwards, it can make for a late Sunday night, a late Monday night for sure.
Oh boy. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to play Flip the Cap. The score to beat is 2, so really the only way you're getting to the top of the leaderboard is if you make the cap into the cup in 1. So there's not a lot of margin for error, so we'll see what happens. We'll be right back.
Flip the Cap is brought to you by Jencap. Jencap is one of the largest wholesale intermediaries in the United States with expertise in wholesale brokerage, binding authority, and program management. Jencap has specialized divisions and affiliate companies that provide niche expertise, unparalleled market access, and nationwide influence. Encompassing expertise from every corner of the industry, Jencap is the ultimate award-winning insurance family. Put Jencap to work for you.
We're back, and you're watching Flip the Cap, the insurance podcast where insurance insights flow and trending topics are always on tap. I'm joined by special guest Bruce Peddle, and it is time to flip the cap.
Let's do this.
Let me tell you the rules because you happen to have probably the longest arm of any guest who's been here, so and I also know you, and you're gonna try to cheat. So the only rule is,
Wow.
I know, I love you too. Hand just can't be, it's not an elbow to the table situation because that would be quite easy for you. So your hand can't pass the table.
All right.
As you can see, there's really no room for error if you want to be at the top of the leaderboard.
There's no better place to be.
Yep.
Top of the leaderboard. Not there.
Or we'll just have 16 ties for second.
Oh, I caught it. All right, for real now then, huh?
Good job.
4.
Hey, you're the only one.
All
There's
right.
a place for you right here.
I am unique.
Right here in the middle.
I am unique between Schutz and LaCava.
Yep. When we come back, we're going to dig into some of the growth that we're seeing in the MGU segment of the insurance industry, some of the key trends that are impacting binding authority markets, and much more. We'll see you soon. Several of our recent guests on Flip the Cap have really focused in that larger brokerage side of Jencap's platform. And for you and the team that you manage at Jencap, it's primarily small business or binding authority accounts. So in your world and what you focus on most day to day, what are some of the biggest trends impacting that business? And does it track with the wholesale brokerage arm of our industry, or does it look different for you?
Yeah, so I think the small business or binding authority arena is really impacted by very similar economic factors that are out there in the marketplace or the world, whether that's inflation, rising interest rates, changing interest rates, most recently obviously rising, social verdicts, creating large settlements. The small business arena is certainly not immune to those factors. It's impacted us just the way it would anywhere else. The limits are generally speaking the same or similar. So you can have the exact same issues, whether it's a larger company or a smaller company. So I'd say all of those factors play in, increased deductibles when you're talking about wind capacity, et cetera, or, wind exposures, exact same impacts, increased deductibles, retentions. You're seeing a reduction in the capital that is going after those, although most recently we've probably seen a slowdown in that reduction, if you will. So kind of a flattening of the marketplace to a certain extent, where terms and conditions are tending to stay the same, whereas a year and 2 years ago we were seeing increases in retentions, deductibles, increases in rates, people going X-Wind and or carriers offering X-Wind all as examples. Certainly when you go to the casualty side of the house, you see carriers being much more cautious on what kind of limits they're putting out there. So it takes more carriers to build larger towers. That obviously doesn't impact the small business arena quite as much as it does a larger tower that might be needed in any given line of coverage. All of those factors have played an important role in changes, whether up or down in the marketplace. The E&S world has really been a benefactor and has grown exponentially in this marketplace. And really, as a broker, it's a great time to be an E&S broker. Mm-hmm. If you're not making money in this marketplace and you're not growing as an E&S broker, you're probably not doing it well.
Given all of the market factors that you just spoke about, carriers are taking a really disciplined approach to rate adequacy, capacity, profitability. It all goes hand in hand. And where the carrier side seems to be proceeding a little bit more cautiously, the MGA-MGU model seems to be an area of real growth in the marketplace right now, where it's really rapidly expanding. So talk about that trend and how it plays into Jencap's platform and how we benefit from that.
So when the standard markets begin to jettison risks, the E&S market tends to pick them up. So we've been a benefactor of that for several years now. It's been probably closing in on 10 that the E&S market has outgrown the standard market by quite a pace. There's also the MGA world, or the MGU world in particular. When carriers or capital wants to target certain risks and take advantage of certain opportunities, an MGU tends to be much more agile and able to take advantage of those pockets of the marketplace much more quickly, whether that's inserting themselves into that part of the marketplace or exiting that marketplace. They can move much more quickly, certainly much more quickly than the admitted marketplace, which is kind of the Achilles tendon of the admitted marketplace. They have to go through regulators in order to change terms, conditions, pricings, rates, whatever the case might be. So by definition, they pretty much can't move quickly, whereas an MGU probably can move the quickest. And they can assemble large groups or key groups of expertise to assemble them to be able to take advantage of certain pieces in the marketplace. And I think probably those two things combined, being agile and having assembled the correct expertise to attack that part of the marketplace that they're looking at. That is really where the MGU model brings value to the marketplace.
When it comes to the smaller, more transactional business, which is the division of Jencap that you really lead, technology is very important part. Speed to market is very important. Having efficient workflows is very important. Being the first one to get your quote out, the fastest one to get your binder. It's really the segment of business that we have the biggest opportunity to lean into some of the technological advancements that we're seeing, some of the AI-driven platforms, and really just being able to collect more meaningful data to make us that much better at our job. So in your position, I know that you're always looking, around at what some of the slickest technology is, not necessarily that Jencap is doing today, but that you see carriers using or you see businesses completely outside of the insurance industry using. What are some of the technologies that you've seen recently that have really impressed you, and what is it that they're solving that we could potentially bring that into our business?
Yeah, you can go in a million different directions with that, right? And it's funny, AI is definitely here to stay. It is nascent, and the demos that I've seen, both based off of my data as well as others, what they can do and how quickly they can enact things, is really going to reshape our world, whether you're talking about the insurance industry or otherwise. I think one of their struggles is going to be focus. I think if you know how to leverage AI, then you need to have a focus. What are you going to focus on? Because you can go in so many different directions. We're just beginning to see what it can really do and how we can implement it in various facets, whether that's in policy issuance, whether it's in underwriting guidelines, whether it's in HR, finance, whatever the case might be. It can impact just about anything we do and everything we do. And that's really beginning to get off the ground. Very exciting stuff. Some of the things previously that we've seen happen and seen implemented, whether it's ourselves, carriers, colleagues, competitors, one that comes to mind is in speaking with a colleague, one of our carrier partners. They were really asking about how do they become the best at what they were doing, and they were in the small business arena. And I said, okay, well, in a lot of cases, you're taking 30 days to issue a policy. And the response was, okay, well, what is the best today? And the answer was, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, was instantaneous, right? And in the past, we would often see people say, well, we're going to work on that. And, maybe years down the road, you would see a change and a gradual change over time. To their credit, they went from a 20 to 30 days-ish time frame to almost instantaneously within about 9 months. So the impact of emerging technologies is very noticeable. And, we've been able to take advantage of some. We've used RPAs, or robotic process automation, where you're, really taking advantage of repetitive tasks and making sure that those are done like clockwork. And ultimately, you're able to free your people up to use their brains more, less data entry, less busy work, so that they can bring more value to the table, so they have more rewarding days, rewarding careers. It's more interesting to them. The resultant effect on our clients are that they see if you keep it simple with policy docs, they're seeing their policy docs extremely consistently, extremely fast. And that kind of noise disappears out of your day and your workflow. So ultimately you end up with a better product, a better service, and you get more traction because they know they can rely on you. And in small business, that's king, right? Table stakes is you get your quote out, A-rated carrier with the appropriate terms and coverages, and you're competitive in a reasonable amount of time. That's table stakes. But where you can really gain traction is if everything else is very, very smooth.
And you're using your human capital where it's needed versus the places that's just rinse, repeat. You can put on autopilot and then your underwriters get to just underwrite or, do the things that they do best that really requires that specialization.
Yeah.
That you can't teach. Maybe one day we can, but we're not there.
There's no doubt.
We're still needed.
Underwriters want to underwrite. You don't want them spending time keystroking with data entry. So to the extent that you can minimize that for them, allow them to use their brains, dig in more, use the various tools that are out there to better understand their risks, better underwrite their risks, and you're doing a better job for your carriers ultimately and for the insured.
You touched on it at the very beginning, talking about Jencap's primary growth strategies, which is organic growth and M&A activity. Given our very robust M&A strategy where we've acquired 20 plus companies, you alluded to the importance of change management and change leadership, but the operational challenges that come with that are endless. To have all of those disparate systems, different workflows, different people doing things different ways, and then you're moving them into one team. What have been some of the key strategies that you have implemented to streamline that and really bring together one team of people at Jencap, particularly in that small business group? How have you gone about doing that? Because you've done it very successfully. So I'm sure there are lots of people listening. M&A is such a important part of so many people's growth strategy. They may be able to learn some tricks from you on how you've gone about it.
Yeah. You know, really, you want to bring your team together. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you want to be able to paint the vision of where you want to go. And in some cases, and most cases, I would say, you want to bring that team together to create the vision. Get people's buy-in on where you want to go so that everybody's rowing in the same direction and we know what the goal is and what our goals are, whatever the project might be. So, you know, once you get there and you get buy-in on the vision and where you want to be, then that team needs to go out and preach the gospel, right? You can't be in every location in front of everybody enough to move the needle. You need your team out there talking about the vision, where we want to go, why it's important to them, why it's should be very good for them. And then you have to, or concurrently, you have to be going about building that foundation. And depending on, you know, the situation, you may be building from the ground up. You may be leveraging something that already exists and just expanding upon it. You may be taking somebody's best practices, somebody's workflows that really excel in a certain area, and having that used across the entity, whatever that division might look like. And ultimately, you know, once you've built that foundation, people have bought into the vision, then you get out of the way and let people do what they do best, and do everything you can not to micromanage them. We're professionals in this business. We should be treated that way. And generally speaking, in my career, when you do that, then people thrive and flourish and they enjoy what they're doing so much more. And, you know, they end up doing flip the cap with 800,000 followers.
Something that I wish you guys follow along, so that could be a true statement. Something that you didn't say, but I know that it's really ingrained in your leadership style, just working hand in hand for you, with you, in every capacity, really. It's the whole Simon Sinek approach of start with the why, of why are we doing this? Why are we making these changes? Why is this you starting with the why, I think, is such an important approach, and then you being able to, as their sturdy leader, paint the picture of here's how I'd like to go about it, but I'm also wide open to your ideas on if you think there's a better path to get to the goal that we're putting in place. And you do a really great job of that, because if you just say, here's what we want to accomplish, that doesn't serve anyone. Like, here's what we want to do. We have no idea how we're going to do it. But if you start with the why, here's why we're doing it, here's how we're going to do it, and then here's what those goals look like day to day, and here's the steps that we're going to take, because they're leaps. They're not baby steps of what we're accomplishing and doing at Jencap. We are literally leaping forward on every given day, so it really requires you to be that sturdy leader and checking all of those boxes. And you are.
Those are a lot of great words. I appreciate them. They're very flattering.
It's true, though.
You know, yes, definitely the team approach. You know, I've never felt like I know somebody's job better than they do, right? If you've been there and you've been doing that job for years and years, then you should know that better than I know it.
Right. And if you have the right people, you trust that. You have to lean in and trust.
You do. You know, trust but verify, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the safety nets have to be in place. So, you know, simple example, when you're bringing new people on, there's a learning curve to any role, no matter who you are. But you want to see whatever those metrics are, you want to see progression, and you want to see it relative to, you know, your expectations on that progressive curve. So if a person is not progressing the way that you would anticipate, then is there a training need there? Did we miss something? Did they miss something? Are they having a bad week? Is something going on at home? But you don't want that to ultimately end up impacting your clients. You want to be able to you know, be proactive and recognize the issue very quickly. So, you know, that part, that accountability, that exception reporting, just reporting in general, making sure that we're firing on all cylinders is critical in order to make that work.
You have a very experienced background in accounting. I always am reluctant. Back in the day, I'd always be reluctant to come to you with reporting or numbers because I knew I would just look like an idiot.
Wow.
That's on me. I'm not the numbers gal. I'm the words gal. But I do know with your background in accounting, it has lent itself very well to you taking these, 100, 200, 300 team people and trying to create a consistent workflow. Talk about how you've leveraged your ability to tap into data, to tap into numbers, to make sure that there's efficiency on the desk level and that there's a level of accountability also. It takes an average person this much time to do this task, setting those expectations when you've got 20, 30 different offices doing it a different way as they get acquired in.
Yeah, I feel like you're telling all my stories here and my secrets. What could be sexier than an insurance guy but an auditor or an accountant, right? So
I don't know. Kanan was a geologist. That's pretty sexy. Rocks for jocks.
Yes. Well done, Kanan. You're up there with me. I think my financial background has lent itself very well to what I've been doing here, whether it's starting or co-founding a business or going into this kind of a corporate role, if you will. Understanding the financial impact of decisions, and if you go down this path or that path, is ultimately critical in making appropriate decisions that will help move the company forward. Ultimately, you have to be making a profit. Some of those profits get reinvested. If you're not making a profit, you got nothing to reinvest. You can't, continue to move forward. I don't come into new areas of insurance acting like I know what their metrics should be. I just know that there should be metrics. So you have to be able to understand, when those metrics should be different. You look at a large brokerage shop versus a small binding authority shop, completely different metrics, and you need to respect that should be different. But you need to understand where those things should fall, whether it's revenue per employee, policy counts, whatever the case might be. You need to be able to have some standards so you know what you're shooting for. When you have a high performing unit or a poor performing unit, and where the TLC needs to go. So, for me, it's a roadmap when I'm able to take a look into those metrics, gather from people what they think it should be, and then we start measuring ourselves, and ultimately the goalposts get raised as you improve whatever process it is you're looking at.
So it's no secret for you and I that we both love the insurance industry. We didn't necessarily graduate from college going straight in intentionally, but we both got here. A couple U-turns and yields, and you're going the wrong way, and here we are. And we both really love our jobs and love this industry and plan to stay here for the duration of our careers. But for someone who either they're a seasoned professional looking to make a career switch, or someone who's about to graduate college and is trying to decide where they should go, why is insurance the place to be?
What I'm very familiar with is the wholesale insurance industry, and I often say this is the hidden gem of the American economy. This is a place where, you can really create great relationships, long-term relationships, make a great living, and have a great time doing it. One of my favorite parts of the wholesale insurance industry, and this is probably the piece that surprised me the most, was that it is international in scope. By its nature, it's international. So it has taken me all over the world. And I consider that to be, one of the greatest privileges I've had. And when I look around at what people do around me, very few have had those kind of opportunities that I've had. And I really fell into the insurance industry. Actually, I was kicked into it. Ernst & Young said, "You are in our insurance practice." And when I said I don't want to be, they said, "Don't really care. You're in the insurance industry now, buddy." And, 30 years later, I'm still in it and loving it. So, I would recommend it to any young person to start their career here. It's just a very cool place to be. You get to interact with so many different businesses, so many different retail agencies across the country, so many different insurance companies and vendors. And whether they're out of London, out of Bermuda, Canada, the US, it's just a really cool place to be. God, Germany, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and it has to be kind of extra sweet for you because your oldest daughter, by choice, not by anything else, is choosing to insert herself into the insurance industry. So that has to be really cool to see happening.
Yeah, little funny story to that. So she said that she was going to college to become a doctor, and I thought, this kid is not a doctor. Okay, you do you, kiddo. So she calls me one evening in her first semester of her freshman year, and she's crying, and she finally spits out that she wants to drop chemistry. There's no way in the world she's going to pass chemistry. And I just started laughing, and I really didn't stop laughing until she finally said, "Dad, why are you laughing at me? Like, I'm failing chemistry." I said, "You want to drop chemistry? I went to 3 colleges. I dropped 2 colleges. You're upset and crying because you're going to drop chemistry. Like, you had a much more aggressive agenda than I ever did in college. I wouldn't have attempted chemistry ever." So chemistry kind of ended the whole medical career
Dream.
path dream. And the next question was, "Tell me more about that insurance thing, Dad." And here we are. She is now a self-professed insurance geek, and she can't get enough of it. So here we go.
And she participated in Jencap's internship program, which we have several robust programs for up-and-coming graduates or recent graduates to get inundated and learn a little bit more about the insurance industry. Talk about that program and her feedback on it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things that we're doing at Jencap, to be able to bring young people in, get them excited about the industry, open their eyes to a world that, there's no way they could know it truly exists and what it really means, and to see them engage in it and go, wow, this is really cool. I like this. I want to get involved. I love that program. I think we're up to about a dozen interns across Jencap each summer. And yes, my daughter did participate last summer in it and is off to a carrier this summer, probably in a month's time or so. So, that program has been very successful. Out of the first couple of classes of interns, if you will, we have several returning, I guess they would have been rising juniors and now rising seniors. And we have had a great success rate in terms of hiring those people and getting them up, in early and young and helping them accelerate their careers, which we have another program for.
Right.
So I'll take the opportunity to mention that, and that's our Jencap Success Academy. And it's really intended to be an accelerated program for young people coming out of college to accelerate their career paths to becoming a broker. We get them a broad range of coverage, expertise.
They're on rotation through really every facet of the industry.
Right. And they're interacting with their peers across the country within Jencap. So they're on Zoom calls with them. They're participating in various events across Jencap. So we're constantly bringing them together, making sure there's a cohesiveness there. And we get a lot of great feedback on how much they enjoy that part of it and that they feel like a very cohesive group. So I think it's been a very, very successful program to date, and one I'm really proud of.
Yeah. Shout out to our training and development team and our recruiting team, because they really go hand in hand. We're going to have to wrap things up, but I just want to close our conversation and give you the opportunity to any retail agent listening today who may be working with a different wholesaler on that transactional, smaller account business. Why should they work with Jencap over our competitors in that binding authority small business arena?
Yeah, so I would say any retail agency across the country can deal with any of our various, I believe, 50 offices nationwide. We have access to all of the markets out there in the binding authority space, in the small business space. We've got great talent. We've got seasoned vets. We've got young people. We've got a great mixture. So we can bring it with the best. So it's an exciting, find your match, if you will, people you enjoy working with, and we will rip it with you. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kathryn Smith, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.